Good evening and a very warm welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. Today is the 27th of September 2023. Bringing you the news, I'm Peruni Karnaratna.
And I'm Vishal Kapuke for News First, where we are and always will be with the people. Before we take a look at the stories in detail, let's first cross over to the headlines.
Reserve accumulation is slow. Further structural reforms are required. No definite date to release the second tranche, IMF staff announces during review. GMOA issues stern warning. Health Minister given time until the 11th of October to rectify issues. Was the Channel 4 documentary on the Easter attacks untrue? President takes wing to Germany to attend the Berlin Global Dialogue. Heavy rains continue in Sri Lanka's southwest. Nepal set 7 T20 world records during Mongolia rout.
And first up in your top story, the International Monetary Fund said that despite early signs of stabilization, full economic recovery in Sri Lanka is not yet assured.
Speaking at a press conference on the first review of the extended fund facility arrangement for Sri Lanka, the IMF also said that there is no fixed timeline to release the second tranche.
Sri Lankan authorities engaged in talks with a team from the International Monetary Fund led by Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Brewer, on the first review of the extended fund facility arrangement for Sri Lanka over the past few days. The team held a press conference at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka today.
Connected to that is the question on the second tranche. So there is no fixed timeline. As I mentioned, we need two important things to be satisfied. We need to have reached agreement on a set of policies and reforms that will allow us to go forward with the understanding that the objectives of the program can be reached. So now we've discovered there was a little bit of a shortfall in one area during this year. So we're looking to try and find ways to address that shortfall and compensate for it. In the area of debt, is there a stable path towards debt sustainability, reaching agreements with creditors that will help restore debt sustainability in Sri Lanka? And so when these two conditions are met, we can go forward.
Mr. Brewer, my question to you is, have you mentioned that the IMF is unsatisfied with the government of Sri Lanka's tax collection system so far?
Tax collection is a concern in Sri Lanka. It's an important pillar of the program because it's important to sustain the essential expenditures of the government. And these expenditures need to be sustained with an appropriate amount of revenues. In Sri Lanka, there's a big gap between these two. Expenditures are of the order of 19% or so of GDP. Revenue is in the order of 9% of GDP or so, and that gap needs to be filled. To accomplish that objective, it's important to have appropriate tax policies and tax administration systems in place that support this effort.
He also responded to a journalist's question on whether the entire deal could be renegotiated once again.
In principle, that's possible. It's of course a big undertaking, and indeed we would want to be sure that the objectives of the program can still be achieved. But it does happen that there are little changes to the program.
With that, do you think that we can expect tax reforms in the very near future?
Yes, filling the gap of missing tax revenues does mean some reforms are needed in order to increase the tax take. We are fully cognizant of the cost that this implies for the population, and indeed, it's not only the taxes, right? It's also utility prices. Inflation has left prices very high. The population is affected in so many different ways, and it is, very, very burdensome for the average citizen of the country.
The Government Medical Officers Association says it will begin continuous trade union action from the 11th of October. The GMOA says the Minister of Health will be given until the 11th of October to find solutions to issues including the tax policy and shortage of medicine.
The Central Committee of the Government Medical Officers Association convened a media briefing today.
We unanimously agreed to give the Minister of Health time until the 11th of October. Wake up at least now. Own up to your responsibilities. Please step out of the fantasy world you are living in and fulfill the responsibilities of the Health Minister. He has time until the 11th of October. The Central Committee of the GMOA will not give him time beyond that. If the Health Minister does not fulfill his responsibilities, we are not ready to give him any more time either.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna revealed today that both the producer and director of the Channel 4 documentary on the Easter Sunday attacks had claimed there was no evidence to prove a link between Major General Suresh Saleh and Zaharan Hashim, despite the documentary establishing such a connection.
Now, Gamini Lokuge and SM Chandrasena told the media today that the claim was aimed at bringing disrepute to the Rajapaksas. The duo established their claim citing a statement that had been made by the director and producer of the documentary in Geneva recently.
The
director of the Channel 4 documentary, Tom Walker, and its executive producer, Pierre, have conceded that there is no connection to Suresh Saleh. Is this a lie? Are their claims lies as well? The intention of all those who criticize this was to sling mud at the Rajapaksas. We are alive today because of the Rajapaksas. I wish to make a personal request from our leaders, make a compensation claim. They are called various names including thief and miner. There has to be a limit. Those claims should be truthful too. Other parties are attempting to come into power by publicizing fake news and vilifying others. It was debated extensively in Parliament. The Cardinal, Sajid Premadasa, JVP leader and many others spoke on this as if Gotabaya Rajapaksa killed thousands of people together with a Muslim organization just to win the election. Since his documentary was released, the opposition thought it had a great trump card. Even Fonseca, who was in the war, believed this. He blamed Maithripala Sirisena. I don't understand how he is a field marshal. Channel 4 gave our opposition politicians a good trump card, caused a stir in the world and then went to Switzerland and claimed that there is no evidence to prove there was a meeting between Zaharan and Suresh Saleh. The only thing we can think of is how incompetent the leaders of our main political parties are.
Two SLPP MPs based their claims today on a statement made in Geneva, Switzerland 2 days ago. An open discussion was held in Geneva with the attendance of its director and producer following a viewing of the Channel 4 Easter Sunday documentary. What were the contents of this discussion? During the discussion, the duo replied to a query posed by a journalist and social activist Sunanda Deshapriya.
I would like to raise two questions of criticisms that has been leveled against film, and like to know your opinion. One is that some people say that actually I have seen Ranil Kumarasinghe's evidence, sister secret evidence, and evidence at the Easter Sunday Attack Commission, and wrong evidence is not a public document. In that document, he asked them to send the media out to, he said, I have to say something, I don't want media to be here. And then he says about Suresh Saleh, question of Suresh Saleh. And he says, I know Saleh very well because he is the one who organized Muslim groups, paramilitary groups to fight the Tigers in the 80s. And he says, Vikram Singh says, he was in power at that time. And he says, and we funded them. And based on this, they say Saleh already knew them. Then why do you Maulana? What is the necessary for Maulana to make a contact with, make a connection between Zaharan and Saleh? That's one question. What do you look at? I think that has a little, because I have seen that document, Ranil Kumarasinghe's evidence. And some others say Saleh is one of the best, like a military agent, and someone like him go to a house in Puntland to meet them. These are some questions some of them have raised. That's one. Others are probably must have well known that they say that every Sayyid Maulana wants to get an asylum, and that's why he is telling this story. Why didn't he tell this story until now, until he left the country? Now Nishanta, we know Nishanta the case, Nishanta has been very vocal, Nishanta has been doing all the investigations, so you know why Nishanta has to leave. And how do you look at what is your response to these criticisms?
Okay. With regards to Salih's involvement with Muslim groups in the 80s and things, as far as I'm aware, I wasn't aware that he had direct involvement with Zafran. I was aware of that work that he did. In terms of his direct involvement with Zafran, I can't really give you a good answer as to why Azam Maulana would be the conduit for that meeting, frankly. I don't have any evidence of the fact that Zafran and Salih met prior to that at all. I mean, Zafran was not active during the 80s. He's around my age, so he would have been much younger then, of course. So he wouldn't have had direct involvement with Salih during those years. NTJ, from what I understand, again, I will defer to people who know Sri Lanka much better than me, like yourself. But from what I understand, is the NTJ we only became much more active later on in the early 2010s. So I don't think Salih would have necessarily had that involvement there. Sorry, you made the second point about Maulana. In terms of the point on Maulana giving his story, there's no way he could give his story from within Sri Lanka. I think, as we've shown in the film, it's not a place where you could safely say, come forward with that kind of evidence and be protected in any way, shape or form. I don't think. So whether or not he said he gave it in order to get asylum, I mean, given how his life is. So while he was in Sri Lanka, he worked at Pillay. He had a pretty good life. He had it was paid very well. He had government protection. He worked for a government. Now he's somewhere safe, thankfully, but he doesn't have anything like the kind of experience he had in Sri Lanka. So I don't think this has been a kind of an experience that he would have chosen to do. But I think it's something he felt he had to do because of the information that he knew.
Actually, I agree with you the point that Saran could have been active at that time. That this is a criticism I have heard, that's why I raised it here.
Sure.
But for your information, there's a website called Colombo Gazette, probably in Colombo. He's editor now in Australia. He's gone to Australia. He's a brother. He, after the film, he said, tweeted saying that Maulana told me the story in Sri Lanka, but I did not report it because I could not verify it. So just for your information, so that's one evidence that he has, before he's telling it in the UN, he has told him that story.
Yes,
he said that
I'm aware
he didn't
of that.
want to publish it.
Yeah.
He said that. It was in his tweet.
Sure.
I would just add that Suraj Salih was out of the country at the time. The Rajapaksas were being investigated. I think he was as well. The activities of the Tripoli platoon, and according to Hanzir Maulana's testimony, the reason why these attacks had to happen, part of the reason was that the investigations needed to stop into the Rajapaksas and they had to return to power. And Suraj Salih wasn't in the supreme position he was in before, and you have the coincidence that Piliam was in prison with some of the group, and so that's where perhaps the idea was hatched, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know the whole plot, but these are the questions. And as for Maulana, why, there are allegations he made this story up. He would have been, hundreds of people, if not thousands, have disappeared in Sri Lanka for telling stories like this. He left Sri Lanka because he was frightened for his life. I don't know why he would make up this story having left Sri Lanka, or tell this story, because Sri Lankan people in exile have also been murdered, who've been in opposition to the government, and he's still frightened for his life. And there's no reason for him to make up a story now that he's safe, or to get asylum. I mean, he has reason enough to. It's such a dangerous story for him to concoct, and from his position as well, for the people he knows.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe left for Germany on a state visit to attend the Berlin Global Dialogue. Now, the inaugural summit will take place in Berlin from the 28th to the 29th of September.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe left for Germany on a 4-day state visit to attend the Berlin Global Dialogue. The Berlin Global Dialogue is a new international forum that unites leaders from business and policy to find joint solutions for a global economy in transition. The Press and Information Office of the Federal Government of Germany said the summit will be chaired by Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Olaf Scholz will also meet President Ranil Wickremesinghe on the sidelines of the Berlin Global Dialogue.
Many questions have been issued in response to the statement made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs President's Counsel Ali Sabri to an Indian media agency criticizing Canada. The minister had responded to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's allegations that India was involved in killing of a Sikh leader who was a Canadian citizen of Indian origin. Condemning the Canadian Prime Minister's statement, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri had stated that Canada is a safe haven for certain terrorist groups.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, which holds the majority power in the government, approved the statement of the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Foreign Minister's statement is true. The leader of an influential country like Canada must be very moderate. Every country should be looked at equally. What our Foreign Minister stated is true.
නමුත් ලෝකයේ බලවත් රටවල් දෙකක් අතර ප්‍රශ්නයකදී අපි වගේ රටක් මේකේ පාර්ශවයක පැත්ත ගැනීම
No, we haven't taken any side. The minister's statement is true. So even though we are a small country, as an independent country that protects the non-aligned policy, if there is any shortcoming in a country, the foreign minister should not hesitate to declare it. We should not be afraid. We are also a country. Although it is small, it should be known that this is also a country.
ඒ කියන්නේ අලි ශබ්රිය අමාත්‍යවරයා කරපු ප්‍රකාශය ආණ්ඩුවේ ස්ථාවරයේද?
If the Minister of Foreign Affairs makes any statement in our country, it is a statement made on behalf of the country.
ඒ කියන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණත් ඒ මතේ ඉන්නවද?
Minister Ali Sabri may be a member of the SLPP, but he is the country's foreign minister. He makes statements for the country, not for the party he is from.
ඒ කියන්නේ අලි ශබ්රිය අමාත්‍යතුමා කරපු ප්‍රකාශය ඔබතුමාත් අනුමත කරනවා? ඒක තමයි ආණ්ඩුවේ ස්ථාවරය.
That is the government stance. We may be a small country, but we are a country with self-respect.
The Director General of Trade Union Relations to the President expressed his opinion in this regard.
No official decision has been announced in this regard. However, as the foreign minister, if he makes a statement, he is not announcing his stance. He makes statements only after discussing with the government. As we know, Minister Ali Sabri is someone who acts responsibly. He acts responsibly in Parliament, in the country and internationally.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුලත් රට තුලත් ජාත්‍යන්තරවත් ඇසිරෙන්න ඔහු වගකීමෙන්.
This was the response of the Deputy Secretary of the Samagi Janabala Vegaya.
The President recently met with leaders of the Group of 7 countries. And while such discussions were being held, the Foreign Minister claimed Canada, a powerful country in the Group of 7, is a safe haven for certain terrorist groups. How can we ensure progress of our country? How can we request help from powerful countries? We are already in a very helpless state. Our Foreign Minister is making pro-India statements. He used his son's assistance for research purposes. Perhaps his son told him to do something like this. His statement is that absurd. Upon hearing this statement, I started to wonder if Ali Sabri is the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka or India. He proved once again that the Foreign Minister supports the ideology of the Rajapaksas.
විදේශ ඇමතිවරයෙක් කියන එක හා ඒ කණ්ඩායමේ ඉන්නවයි කියන එක එතුමා නැවත හෙළිදරව් කරලා පෙන්නු.
Traders have many complaints about the Angunakula Palasa market, which they say was built without consulting them. Now, what exactly happened here? News First delved deeper into this matter.
රටවල් 14ක ගිහිල්ලා බලලා ඇවිල්ලා හැදුවයි කියලා තමයි මේ කට්ටිය කියන්නේ. රටවල් 14ක ගිහිල්ලා බහදලා බැලුවා නම් මේන කෝටි 8යි ගාණක් වියදම් කරලා හැදුවලු. 7-5කට නෑ අර කඩවල টয়ලට් ඔක්කොම උතුරලා මෙහෙ වරුසාව ජාමට මේකට එනවා.
The Angunakula Palasa market is where these farmers sell their harvest. Due to this, many people frequent the Angunakula Palasa market. Approximately 500 people come to these premises every Wednesday and Friday. However, there is room for less than 100 people in the new marketplace of Angunakula Palasa. This is how traders engage in their business activities. Heavy rains certainly do not ease this situation.
මේ පොලක් හදලායි මේ මොකද්ද මේ රජය කරලා තියන්නේ අපිට පොඩ්ඩක් මේ රෝල් ටික බලන්න පොඩ්ඩක් අර මේ සම්පූර්ණම මඩ ඉහෙනවා ගෙනියන්නේ නැහැ ජරාවනේ 23000ක බඩු අරගෙන ඉවලා අපි රුපියල් 1000ක් හොයා ගන්න බෑ අවසානදී අපිට අවුරුදු ගාණක් අපිට හදලා දීලා මාකට් එක නම් ගන්න ඒ බඩ ගෙනියන හොඳ හැටියට ඒක හදලා තියෙන ලස්සන අපි දුප්පත් මිනිස්සුන්ට කරන්න දෙන්නේ නේද.
Traders point out that although there are no adequate facilities, the Provincial Council does not fail to collect taxes from those who run businesses within the premises.
News first with the people.
Several civil organizations, including the National Consumer Front, Citizens Power Against Bribery and Corruption, and the Low Country Landowners Association, visited the Sri Lanka Standards Institution today to discuss quality-related issues of several products in the market.
Although two representatives were allowed to enter the premises, media personnel were not allowed to enter, prompting the group to discuss their issues at the entrance.
Although we applied fertilizer, we don't get the expected results. Earlier, when we added fertilizer, we couldn't go to the land for 1 or 2 weeks. This fertilizer can be used to wash your face. The innocent farmers are suffering. We find it difficult to make ends meet. We set the standards for the fertilizer. These standards are maintained by the National Fertilizer Office. They are legally responsible for the maintenance of standards of the fertilizer in the market. I think this contains hot phosphate from Eppavala. The solubility of this fertilizer is low. Maybe that is why they sink down like sand.
We pay a heavy price for a bottle of water, but it contains particles. Yet you still stick a label on it saying that it is approved by the Ministry of Health. Is there no way the SLIS can look into these matters?
Why can't they? Please give us a reason. Your salaries are paid by the people of this country. We brought the media with us because the people deserve to know the truth. If you are hiding this from the media, that means something questionable is taking place.
The group expressed their views to the media thereafter.
Are they afraid of the media? You saw what these public officials are saying. Bottles of water contain particles. They can't see it. Landowners brought fertilizer samples. They contain sand. They say phosphate contains sand. When they apply this to the plants, they don't get the expected results. These officials can't answer our questions. Eggs were imported today and they have turned black with fungus. We got these from supermarkets. Here is proof. If so, what is the role of the SLIS?
Representatives of the University Alumni Action Centre handed over a letter to the United Nations Human Rights Office in Sri Lanka today, informing about the new laws brought by the government to suppress social media. The University Alumni Action Centre points out that the government is proposing laws in various ways to suppress the people.
The Broadcasting Regulatory Bill, the Anti-Terrorism Bill are all brought forward to silence the people, to cover up the government's incompetence. The Ranil Wickremesinghe government is being rejected by the people. We saw Ranil Wickremesinghe go before the UN General Assembly and boast to the world that he will bring Sri Lanka to great heights. He says he will increase digital communication in Sri Lanka. Although he boasts to the world, here he is trying to lock people out of social media. We say it is the young people of this country who have the keys to open these locks. We challenge the government to try and bring these laws. We will take action against it.
The State Minister of Mass Media says the act would not oppress social media.
The draft legislature brought forward by the Ministry of Defence has been granted cabinet approval. I want to raise a few questions. How many young people commit suicide due to social media these days? Is it wrong to find a solution for these issues? How many families fall apart because of social media? Religions are being attacked on social media. Is it wrong to find a solution for it? Most people think social media is going to be controlled to protect the image of the government. We responsibly state that we will not take measures to ban social media or stifle it in any way.
The National Movement for a Just Society also explained its position in this regard today.
We believe this is an unsuccessful bill. It also violates the constitution as well as basic legal principles. The commission they are expecting to create is not an independent commission. The appointments to this commission are not made through the Constitutional Council. The president appoints around 5 people he chooses and he can remove them whenever he wants. They are his instruments. Anyone can understand that this is against the basic structure of the constitution. By making an amendment to the penal code, they can supersede the need to bring an entirely new act. We suggest the government to throw away these bills and establish a natural regulatory process.
The Supreme Court today ordered the immediate implementation of the steps taken by the Ministry of Education to fulfill 4,718 vacancies in the Principal Service of Sri Lanka.
The order was given after an interim order of the petition filed with the Supreme Court against these recruitments was withdrawn. Accordingly, the petitioners took steps to withdraw several other petitions in this regard as well.
The Supreme Court lifted the injunction order which had been issued suspending the circular for the recruitment of teachers. The petition was heard before a 3-judge bench led by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya.
There is no obstacle in recruiting these principals. The Supreme Court has given the Ministry of Education the order to recruit accordingly. If there was a problem related to vacancies of principals, it cannot be a problem to the Ministry of Education now. The Supreme Court has given the order to act on recruitment immediately.
The Irrigation Department says that the water levels of 3 rivers have reached critical levels due to heavy rains. According to the Director of the Irrigation Department's Hydrology Division, SPC Sugeshwara, the Nilbala River is at a level that requires attention in Akurasa.
Now, the Department of Irrigation further says that the Kuda Ganga in Bulat Sinhala and the Attanagalu Oya in Dunamale are at a level that requires attention.
The Department of Meteorology says that heavy rains of about 100 millimeters may occur in the western and Sabaragamu provinces as well as some places in the Gaul and Mathura districts. The department stated that showers or thunder showers may occur in the Uva and eastern provinces during the evening or at night. It informs the general public to take adequate precautions to avoid threats caused by strong winds and lightning that may occur with thunder showers. A correspondent stated that there were intermittent heavy rains and strong winds in the Hambantota district since this morning. The wind speed increased close to the main entrance of the Hambantota fishing harbour and fishermen did not set out to sea in one-day vessels from last night. A number of areas in the Mathura district were inundated. Upatissa Road, Valgama, Valigama Sultanagoda Road, Akurasa and Ballatota areas were also inundated.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says that if all parliamentarians come together, it will be possible to build a country free of alcohol and drugs. Now, the opposition leader made this statement when the Parliamentary Committee on Narcotics convened today. If all 225 parliamentarians raise their hands against drug and tobacco, I believe that would be a very good approach to the matter. Drug dealers are much more powerful when looking deeper into it. They experience luxuries from the country's taxpayers' money. Going to jail is advantageous to them as there are no threats. They nurture drug lords who destroy the future of the country. Inside those jails, their businesses flourish when they are in jail. This is such a joke. Drug dealers should not be given any room within the country. As a country, we need to make a decision on the fight against the drug menace.
The newly constructed Sanghavasa and Arms Hall of the Sri Mahavihara in Pamankada was declared open in the presence of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa this morning. The chief incumbent of the Kotte Sri Kalyani Samagri Dhamma Mahasangha Sabha, Most Venerable Dr. Ittapane Dhammalankara Thero, including the Mahasangha, had attended this event and the Arms Hall was declared open in the presence of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simbalapitiya says that the withholding of interest income of senior citizens with an interest income of less than 100,000 rupees will be suspended. He says that the circular on the matter was issued today. The new telephone number 1944 has also been reserved for inquiries in this regard. Now moving on with the news, today marks World Tourism Day and this year's theme is tourism and green investments.
The Ministry of Tourism and Land held an event to mark World Tourism Day 2023. The event was attended by multiple stakeholders including government officials and top industry figures. The Deputy Director of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority spoke at the event.
Tourism accounted about 4% of the global economy. We all know that it came down to almost to a ground zero during the crisis situations. Investments plays an important role in the recovery of the global tourism. We know that it's important that we as the government organizations, together with all the partnering government agencies, together with all the stakeholders in the industry, we have to work together to support, being flexible and to support the investors who are coming into the country.
A panel discussion on tourism and green investments was also held.
In celebration of the World Tourism Day 2023, Shangri-La Hambantota has published a series of sustainable initiatives which it has launched within its premises. Let us now take a look at one such initiative to educate the future generations of our country.
We at Shangri-La Hambantota believe in nurturing young mind to become a responsible steward of our planet. And what better way to start than by learning how to segregate waste? It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Let's begin with paper and cardboard. Remember, they love to be recycled. Next up, plastics. These little guys can be transformed into nutritious. Now, let's not forget our green friends. Organic waste, turning them into compost enriches our soils and help the plants thrive. And for those tricky materials like batteries and electronics, we have got a special place for them too. Safety first. Together, we can create a sustainable future. Happy Tourism Day from all of us here at Shangri-La Hambantota.
The countdown to the 75th Universal Declaration of Human Rights begins with just 75 days left until the event. The United Nations High Commissioner of Human Rights, Volker Turk, issued his message to mark the 75th Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
"75 years ago, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights made humanity a promise: equality, freedom, and justice for all. There has been immense progress since then, but there's also so much left to be done. We look to you to keep using your voice and to take action to create the world we want and that we so desperately need. As we count down to 10 December, Human Rights Day, tell us what pledges you want to see to make human rights a reality for all of us. Human rights should be everyone's normal, every day. A world without war, without discrimination, where everyone has a say, everywhere, no matter what. The time for human rights is now.
The Capital Maharaja Group commenced an initiative to usher in the upcoming 75th anniversary of the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights with a campaign titled 75 Days to Celebrate UDHR 75.
Each year, Human Rights Day is celebrated across the world on the 10th of December with events to mark the importance of human rights, which are indivisible and inalienable. The Global United Nations theme for this year's Human Rights Day is, quote, Human Rights 75, Freedom, Equality and Justice for All, unquote. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is considered a landmark document in human history. This milestone document set out, for the first time, fundamental human rights to be universally protected. 30 articles underpin international human rights law and provide a common global standard for human rights. The contents of the UDHR have been incorporated into a large number of international treaties and national constitutions. The series of programs organized by the Capital Maharaja Group to mark the 75th anniversary of the UDHR, as well as the significance of human rights, geared towards its upliftment and towards greater education in the field of human rights, will see its culmination with the main event being held on the 10th of December 2023 at Stein Studios in Ratmalana.
The Capital Maharaja Group is set to hold another series of trilingual inter-university debates on human rights in the run-up to this year's Human Rights Day.
Students representing both state and private sector universities are set to take part in the series of trilingual inter-university debates on human rights with great enthusiasm. Several luminaries in the field of law, journalism and human rights will contribute to the debates as judges. The team selections for the tournament happened today as well. The competition was briefed in detail by veteran media personality Ashoka Dias and news director of Shakti TV Rajendran Kogulnath. Participants joined online for the event as well. The details of the decorum of debate were explained by Legal Secretary of the Capital Maharaja Group, Attorney Sonali Banikabaduke. The debates will commence over the next few weeks and will be held until the UDHR Day in December.
The best performing currency of the third quarter isn't the surging US dollar, it's Afghanistan's Afghani. According to statistics, the Taliban-controlled medium of exchange has jumped 9% against the greenback since the 1st of July.
According to the Bloomberg, the strong run means Afghanistan's Afghani is now up 14% year-to-date, making it the world's third strongest performing currency of 2023, behind only the Colombian peso and the Sri Lankan rupee. Since it retook Kabul in August 2021, the Taliban has imposed tight currency controls and barred locals from using the US dollar and Pakistani rupee and banned online trading in a bid to prop the Afghani up. However, Afghanistan's economy has suffered since the Taliban toppled Ashraf Ghani's government.
In your sports news, Nepal set 7 T20 international world records in a 273-run victory over Mongolia in the first match of the Asian Games men's cricket competition today.
Batting first, Nepal scored 314 runs in 20 overs, the highest score in men's T20 internationals. Nepal's total of 26 sixers was the most number of sixers in a T20 international inning. Nepal's Kushan Mala scored the fastest century in T20 internationals in just 34 deliveries. Dipendra Singh Airi also entered the record books for scoring the fastest half century in T20 internationals in just 9 deliveries. Chasing a target of 314 runs, Mongolia were bowled out for 41 runs in 13 overs, giving Nepal the largest margin of victory in a T20 international. Nepal also secured the record for the highest partnership for the third wicket.
And that is a wrap of tonight's edition of Primetime News on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Theruni Karnaratna.
And I'm Disal Kapake for the News First team signing off. Meanwhile, stay tuned for Face the Nation coming your way after the news. As always, thank you for listening. Stay safe, take care, and have a good night.